Well, hey everybody. I hope you had a good summer. I know I had it's actually pretty packed summer of stuff. We had VBS to start things off, and some of you were there, and we served together. That was a good time. Right after that, went and did the Boundary Waters trip. Some of you might have been there, and kept everybody alive, which was really good. So that happened. Had another baby. So that was, we got three now, Clint, Valkyrie, and Jubilee. Yes, they're all Marvel names. And then we actually had construction done on our house. Nothing major, but I guess major in that. So my house is from 1921, so a little over 100 years old. And when they had done an expansion, apparently they forgot something pretty important, which is like a foundation to the house. And my house was actually, part of my house was sinking into the ground. So obviously that's not good. So I called my friend Josh, and he works for a company that works on foundations and stuff. So I figured he would know what to do with this. So he came out, looked at our house, and then his company came out and fixed it for us. But something that was fun was getting to catch up with him. I mean, Josh was a high schooler when I was in elementary school. We went to a different church together a long, long time ago. And, I mean, Josh was just the coolest guy. He was one of those older high schoolers that wasn't like ashamed to hang out with you if you were, a little kid. So that was really cool. He played drums for the worship band at church. He was captain of the football team. I think he did swimming. So he's just this really athletic guy, super, super confident. He was just the coolest growing up. So I was talking to him on the phone about, the job that his company was going to come do for our house. And it was like some of the times we would talk business, and then most of the time we were just talking about like, God and, stuff that happened years ago. And I finally got the chance to tell him that, like, he was somebody that I thought was just the coolest growing up. And I don't know if you've ever had that, where you get a chance to talk to one of your childhood heroes and tell them about the influence that they had in your life. But that was one of those moments I got to kind of confess to him that he was one of my heroes, that he was just the coolest, that I thought that he was the coolest person. I mean, he to this day, he still looks like an actor, so he's awesome. And so I told him, Josh, I never told you this before, but I always thought you were the coolest guy. And his response was really surprising to me. His response was, yeah, that was actually kind of my whole goal growing up. My whole goal in high school was to make everybody think that I was the coolest. And I was kind of surprised because I thought that all of that coolness was just kind of natural for him. But it was something that he worked at and cultivated. And he kept talking, and he told me about when he graduated high school and he was driving in Rogers here. And he remembered the exact spot where he realized that he had built up this image of himself in people's minds to make everybody think that he is super cool, and that it really didn't matter, that it was kind of worthless in the end. So here's this guy that I just idolized growing up, telling me that at the time that I thought he was coolest, he kind of didn't even like himself. And I wonder if maybe you've been there. Now, maybe you're in school right now and you feel like nobody likes you, that you don't have any friends. And it's important to have community around you. It's important to feel like you belong. And I want to let you know that you always belong here. But the reality is, even if everybody likes you, If everybody thinks that you're the coolest person who's ever walked the face of the planet, if you don't like you, none of the love in the whole world is going to matter. So how do we become people who we actually like? People that we actually admire? How do we become all that we were meant to be? Well, I think that we need help. In fact, we need an influencer in order to show us how to become the kind of person that we're meant to be. For me, Josh was one of those influencers. And I thought, man, this guy is so cool. If I could be like him, I would like myself. So maybe your influencers are your parents. Maybe they're your friends. Maybe you've got your own Josh. Or maybe you listen to a lot of influencers on YouTube or TikTok. And the question for us is, who are we going to follow? We're going to follow somebody. Who's it going to be? Because they're all telling us this is what it looks like to be all that you were meant to be. And everybody has a different picture of what that looks like. But listen, I've followed a lot of influencers. I've followed Josh, I've followed a John, a Matt, a Mark, a Dan, and lots more. And what I've found out as I've followed them is that they don't know how to live so that they can be all that they can be. And every one of them has screwed up somehow. So the question is, who should we follow? Who should be our influencer? Now, you can keep choosing to follow whoever you want as your influencer, but I would say, of course, that the best influencer is Jesus. Now, a lot of you are going to hear that and say, well, yeah, I've been doing that for a while now. Well, how's that going for you? Have you come to a place in your life as you've been influenced by Jesus where you actually like yourself? Or are there things in your life that make you dislike you? Have you ever said to yourself, man, I've been a Christian for so long now, I should be better than this? Or maybe you say things like, I've tried, but nothing changes. And maybe we even get to the point where we would say, I've tried Jesus, but he just doesn't work. Maybe you could say that. Maybe he's the right person to follow, but we've been following him in all of the wrong ways. So here's what we're going to do this year at Youth Group. We're going to say that, yes, Jesus is the best influencer. He's the one that we should follow if we want to be people who we actually like. People who are a part of a global movement to push back the forces of evil in this world and to make this creation more like what God intended it to be. But in order to follow Jesus, instead of saying that we're going to follow him, but then trying all of the churchy Christian stuff, we're going to clear away all the fog and just focus on what Jesus says it looks like to follow him. And he's going to tell us exactly how to follow him this year. And spoilers, it's super simple. Now, you don't have to come from an awesome family to do this, to follow Jesus. You don't have to be athletic to follow Jesus. You don't have to love to read to follow Jesus. You don't have to be a straight-A student to follow Jesus. You don't have to be anybody. You don't have to be somebody great to follow Jesus. What you have to do is just listen to him and try out what he's saying. But before you do this, before you decide to follow Jesus, I need to warn you. It will cost you to follow Jesus. Today, next week, your whole life, there's going to be cost to follow Jesus. At the same time, I believe that there is reward beyond our wildest imaginings if we follow Jesus. So before you come back to youth group next week, here's your assignment. Here's your test drive. I want you to start asking yourself what it will cost to follow Jesus and what good it will do you to follow Jesus. You don't have to make a commitment to follow him this week, but start thinking, will I follow?